Okay, and that just concluded, well, let's say this, the most interesting press conference.
Yes.
I hope those attorneys weren't being paid, because that was the family attorneys for the Farook family. And what you saw there was really a big focus on perhaps this could have been domestic or workplace violence, a lot of focus on the two terrorists. And it is, in fact, a terror investigation. And the reports came out by the FBI that they are calling this an act of terror against those individuals. And this is, in fact, the single largest, greatest terror attack on U.S. soil since 9/11. But we heard a lot of different things during that conference, perhaps also suggesting that the FBI was confused, that they didn't really understand exactly what was going on here, that they had the grandmother essentially in custody for 7 hours asking her questions. We learned that the grandmother was, in fact, in the home, was watching the daughter, and living in that home. They said primarily upstairs, and now we also know from the reports that this was essentially an IED factory, that you had a large number of pipe bombs, bomb-making materials in that residence. As a former prosecutor, I'll tell you, you certainly want to ask someone who was an eyewitness, potentially recipient to those acts going on in the home, a lot of questions about what she knew, what she observed, and who was coming in and out of the home. We're going to take it around the table. We've got some thoughts and reflections on this. Greg?
I was absolutely amazed. They could go on tour as a comedy troupe. For one thing, when he said, like, nobody noticed the pipe bombs, you mean to tell me people who make pipe bombs, they don't leave them out in the open? You know, you just walk in and there's a pipe bomb, and then he goes, oh, I'm sorry, no, that's just a clock for school. That is just amazing to me. They also kept stressing that there may not be ties to a greater terrorist organization. That almost argues against their clients, because they're conflating terrorism with the Muslim community. Whenever they kept talking about these people, these terrorists, they kept saying, "Oh, you don't want to, you don't want to attack the Islamic community." Nobody is, but by them constantly bringing that up, they are conflating the terrorists with the Islamic community, and that is the ultimate crime of Islamophobia. They were walking cartoons. They could work at the Department of Justice.
Okay, well, some of the rhetoric coming out of there was mirroring what we've been hearing from the White House and the DOJ, but this is an ongoing investigation, and they're going to try to establish and see if there's any links, Dana, to other terror groups, other cells, if there's other individuals. We've heard already that the FBI feels that there was people that were perhaps working with them or closely associated. We do know that the husband, Mr. Farook, had ties with people who were on investigation lists, that they were following that, and at one point those investigations were closed. All of that is very relevant, but you heard a lot of language about blaming almost the victims here, talking about the beard, talking about workplace violence. We're not sure if that's what it is. Well, it's already been designated that it wasn't that. And by the way, these are the same coworkers that they murdered in cold blood that they accepted a baby shower from months earlier.
Well, from a PR standpoint, I think that I can understand when a family has an attorney and that they want to try to at least be in the news story and to provide some sort of information. So typically what you would do is you would have a written statement that you go out and you read on camera. You maybe take one or two questions and get off the stage because, as they said, they're going to have additional follow-up questions from the FBI, as they should. They almost seemed surprised and offended that they were even being subjected to any sort of questioning. And they gave, every once in a while, he was sort of remembered to say, oh, right, and we feel mournful for the victims. But to me, I think that was a pretty sad showing. But it was actually very interesting in another way, which is to look into the mindset of the community and how they are approaching this. And this is one of the problems, that if you don't define radical Islam for what it is, then you get this kind of mush.
Yes, and there's no act or incident. They try to talk about this beard over and over again. We were saying here, who pushed the beard? Who pushed the video? It was more like just the total like distracting Benghazi. Yeah.
Blaming Benghazi on a video now allows you to blame a massacre on making fun of a beard.
Yeah, and Eric, you know,
which
again,
is even proven.
Right. With this whole narrative really seeming to just say, and then there was another report that they did earlier where they talked about that the female, Eric, weighed 90 pounds and wouldn't be able to actually hold up a gun to shoot anybody. So complete disassociation with the facts.
Okay. So we're feverishly taking notes here. My head is exploding. There are so many things from that press conference that we could talk about. Let me just try and nail a few of the ones that really stood out. By the way, two despicable lawyers, pure propaganda. No information, just all propaganda. They weren't defending anybody. All they were doing was trying to push a narrative. Blame the beard, blame Islamophobia. They blame law enforcement and the FBI for Islamophobia and racism. And when the FBI went out of their way to make sure that they didn't call it terror in advance until they were sure that they had that loophole closed, and then they did. Basically blaming the victims, as Kimberly pointed out, blaming the beard. The home had pipe bombs. The home was booby-trapped. They can't say that these people, if this is just a spontaneous reaction. There's nothing. There's no evidence. The evidence proves everything contrary to what they were saying. But this is the most important thing in my mind, and I'll stop, was that this is not good for the moderate Muslim community.
Exactly.
For the moderate Muslim community to come out and hear these two lawyers blame everything but the two people who perpetrated a crime that killed 14 people and who killed or hurt how many countless others. It's terrible. We've been asking the moderate Muslim community to step up and call that BS out for what it is, murder and terror, and things like this puts a bad feeling, a bad taste in everyone's mouth about whether or not the moderate Muslim community is willing to step up and talk. They're not.
Let me get this straight. You want the lawyers, and we don't. Are they lawyers for the family? That's my impression.
Yes. Well,
okay. So do you want the lawyers for the family now to blame the family for what took place? I think their job as they come out there is to say, slow down, everybody. Stop leaping to assumptions. If you're their lawyer, Eric, you want somebody who will come out and say, here is what it's isolated.
Juan, nobody jumped to conclusions. When it happened, everybody was blaming it on guns. They weren't blaming it on radical Muslims. Nobody jumped.
Now
when the facts are out. The facts are out. We can't blame radical Muslims.
In fact, we're still searching for facts. I think that's their point. We are still searching to see exactly, was there a cell? We don't know. Was there some training? We don't know. Eric has asked a very important question. Where's the money come from to fund this kind of activity? We don't know. But I think a lot of people...
We know that they didn't have funds sufficient to buy all of this. That's a fact.
That's what I'm saying. That's why we're asking the question about the money. But you don't want to get yourself into a conundrum of sorts where you're saying, oh, yeah, you know what, they're Muslim, and there was this woman who just came from Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and everybody's leaping to make conclusions. So the lawyer's job...
That's not leaping.
It was leaping.
That's a methodical look at research.
In fact, here's the thing that strikes me. I think the real danger here is what they're calling self-radicalization. That, you know, oh, yeah, I'm told that she somehow pledges
allegiance to ISIS and al-Baghdadi.
At the last moment.
That sounds ambiguous.
Now, this is during the commission of the act. This just puzzling to me.
Suggesting that they were involved also?
No,
Are you jumping into that obvious hotbed of lies and despicable propaganda?
Here's what I'm concerned about.
This is all propaganda.
This is not,
and
you're wrong.
Why are you perpetrating this
You are
BS?
wrong. You know, because you don't understand the job of a lawyer.
Maybe they're
fragile. What? Blame the victims? Blame America? Blame America for 14 people dead?
Let me tell you something. If I was representing you, I would introduce some element of doubt. But let me just say this.
I didn't think they were doing that. Well, hold on.
Hey, Juan, do you understand the terrorists are dead? So these criminal defense attorneys aren't going to defend them in court.
Did you hear them say that they
didn't shoot,
or did you hear them say the reason why, there may have been a reason why this happened?
And why did they go after Britney Spears? Where did that come from?
Right.
No, that's like they were talking about bullying, about beards, making fun of beards, and then the guy says, "I hate Britney Spears' music."
But
you, sir, are he's actually advocating terror against Britney Spears.
Okay, here's my big concern on a serious note because I'm a Britney Spears fan.
Yeah.
We have 71 people charged in the United States with ISIS activity since March of 14. They say there are 300 Americans in the U.S. who are ISIS sympathizers and have been active online recruiters.
Right.
Okay, so if this is the leading edge of something where you have self-radicalization, buddy, we're in trouble. That's what I'm worried about, and that's what I think the lawyers are talking about.
Oh, wow. Okay, so Juan watched a different press conference, but there's no problem if things get confusing like that. But Juan, you do understand this has been designated an act of terror. You do understand that she pledged allegiance to ISIS and al-Baghdadi.
Yes.
Okay, so you're not confused about that. So now the only thing that remains is to determine the nexus and to see what the tentacles of the terror network, to see if there was other people that worked aiding and abetting, acting in concert to help them facilitate this crime, or God forbid, to help plan another one.
Right,
There's also sufficient evidence that they're working on developing to see if there was a secondary target or another incident.
Right. In
so
fact,
we get
I'm
that,
very
right?
curious.
So it's nothing to do with like the beard.
I wanted to ask Adam Housley about this, the idea that there was a second plot, that they were going to do some additional terrorist act, but we didn't get a chance. But your point is well taken, Kimberly.
Right.
They're looking for further evidence to see exactly what the
They haven't found the smoking gun yet. There are smoking guns all over the scene.
And pipe bombs
AR-15s
and IEDs
and
booby-trapped apartments with babies and grandmothers in it.
Unbelievable. And they said, well, she was
It's a
just,
quiet,
your
conservative
average,
family.
quiet, conservative housewife with pipe bombs and jihad and
Don't be so skeptical. You're being skeptical is basically Islamophobia this summer.
We're being judgmental.
Yeah.
All right. Never a dull moment. More